You ever had one of those moments where the world just freezes? Like someone pressed pause on your life, and all you could do was stand there, burning, while everyone else kept moving. Yeah, that was me last Tuesday. It was during the Blackwood family's fancy dinner, a weekly torture session my wife Sarah insists we attend. Her family, the Blackwoods, are old money. Like so old it smells dusty and a little bit rotten. They own Blackwood Industries, a massive conglomerate that apparently touches everything from aerospace to toothpaste. And I, Alex Miller, was their favorite punching bag. The setup was always the same. Polished mahogany table, too many forks. Hushed conversations about yacht prices and country club memberships. My mother-in-law, Reginald Blackwood, with her hair so stiff it looked shellacked, always started it. "Oh, Alex, still working at that finance place, darling?" She'd coo, like I was selling widgets from a cart. "I work as a financial analyst. A pretty good one, actually. But to them, it was always that finance place." My father-in-law, Richard Blackwood, was worse. He didn't bother with cooing. He was a barrel-chested man who looked perpetually annoyed by my existence. He'd just grunt, "Still no ambition to get into real business, Alex. Your own firm, perhaps, or even just a more substantial position." The implication was clear. I was small fry, a nobody. This Tuesday, though, they decided to go for the jugular. Sarah's older brother, Marcus, a smarmy snake, who works as an executive at Blackwood Industries, started. "You know, Alex," he said, swirling his impossibly expensive wine, "we were discussing new investments at the company today. Large-scale, transformative stuff. Things you probably wouldn't understand." He chuckled, and Eleanor joined in with a polite but cutting titter. "Indeed," Eleanor chimed in, fixing me with a gaze that could curdle milk. "Takes a certain pedigree, doesn't it, to truly grasp the complexities of an enterprise like Blackwood Industries. Not just anyone can walk in and manage such assets." I tried to keep my face neutral. I've had years of practice. "I am sure it's very complicated, Eleanor," I said, trying to sound bored instead of furious. Then Richard leaned forward, his eyes narrowed. "Look, Alex," he said, his voice dropping, which somehow made it more menacing. "Let's be frank. You are a nice enough boy. You make Sarah happy, and that's something. But you are not one of us. You never will be. You don't have the means. You don't have the understanding. You don't have the money. And frankly, you never will." It wasn't just an insult, it was a verdict. They weren't just saying I was poor, they were saying I was inherently incapable, permanently beneath them. They were saying I was a genetic failure. My face burned. Sarah, bless her heart, tried to interject, "Father, please, that's enough." But her voice was weak, drowned out by Marcus's sneer. "True, Sarah. Alex is a good man, but he's just not in our league. He's never going to have the kind of wealth we do. He's never going to command the respect we command. He's poor, and he'll stay poor, and that's just the way it is." The silence after that was deafening. The clink of forks on china sounded like church bells. I could feel every eye on me, pitying, judgmental. Sarah looked distraught. I just stared at my plate, my jaw tight. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip the table. I wanted to walk out and never look back. But I just sat there, taking it. Because that's what I always did. I took it. I swallowed the insults, the sneers, the backhanded compliments that felt like daggers. Dinner ended soon after, a mercy. Sarah apologized profusely on the ride home. "I am so sorry, Alex. They don't know what they're saying." "They know exactly what they're saying, Sarah," I replied, my voice flat. "They say it every time." We got home and I went straight to my study, needing to be alone. I stared out the window, looking at the city lights. Poor. That word echoed in my head. Poor. Like it defined me. Like it was all I was. And then my phone buzzed. It was a number I didn't recognize, a private number. Usually I ignore those, but something made me answer. Mr. Miller? A formal voice asked. This is Robert Sterling, from Sterling and Associates law firm. I apologize for the late call, but it's urgent. We need you to come to our offices tomorrow morning. It's regarding the estate of Reginald Blackwood. Reginald Blackwood, Sarah's grandfather. The true patriarch of the family, the one who actually built Blackwood Industries from the ground up. Before he handed it over to his children, Richard, Eleanor, and their siblings, and retired years ago. He had passed away about a month ago. I'd met him a few times at family functions. He was an odd duck, quiet, always observing, never really engaging in the family's endless bragging. He always had a strange, knowing look in his eyes when he looked at me. A look that never quite fit with the disdain his children and grandchildren openly showed. I figured he was just old and tired. The estate of Reginald Blackwood. I repeated, my mind still buzzing from the humiliation of dinner. I don't understand. Why me? The lawyer's voice was calm, almost unnervingly so. Mr. Miller, Mr. Blackwood's will, has some unexpected provisions. He specifically requested your presence for the official reading tomorrow morning, 10 sharp. It's a matter of considerable importance, I assure you. It will be worth your time. My gut twisted unexpected provisions. This didn't make any sense. Why would Reginald Blackwood's will involve me? I was the poor, insignificant husband of his granddaughter. I had no claim, no connection, no place in the Blackwood legacy, or so I thought. 10 a.m. I asked, a strange mix of dread and curiosity bubbling inside me. Yes, Mr. Miller. And please, do not mention this to any other members of the Blackwood family before your arrival. Mr. Blackwood was very particular about that. He hung up before I could ask another question. I stood there, phone in hand, the word poor still ringing in my ears. But now, a new unsettling thought was forming. Reginald Blackwood. His will my presence required. The Blackwoods called me poor. They thought I was a nobody. They thought I would never amount to anything. And they had no idea that I was about to walk into a lawyer's office and inherit the very thing they believed was their birthright. Their company. The morning felt surreal. I barely slept. My mind replaying the lawyer's words, the Blackwoods' insults, and the impossible notion that Reginald Blackwood's will had anything to do with me. I didn't tell Sarah. The lawyer's request to keep it quiet had stuck in my head. Besides, what would I even say? Hey, honey, your dead grandfather's lawyer called and wants to talk about his will, but I have no idea why. She'd think I was crazy. I drove across town to the address the lawyer gave me. Sterling and Associates was in a sleek modern skyscraper, all glass and steel, the kind of place that screamed serious money. I felt underdressed in my usual work attire, but it was all I had. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the frantic beat of my heart. This had to be a mistake, a small, meaningless bequest. Maybe Reginald, in his old age, had a moment of clarity and wanted to leave me some nominal sum for being Sarah's husband. A token. When I stepped into the waiting room, my jaw almost hit the floor. The entire Blackwood family was there. Richard, Eleanor, Marcus, his wife Bethany, and Sarah's aunt and uncle Amelia and Stephen, along with their children. They were all dressed in solemn black, looking grim and self-important, and they looked utterly shocked to see me. Alex, Eleanor screeched, her eyes widening. "What on earth are you doing here?" Richard glared, his face contorted in suspicion. "What is the meaning of this?" "This is private family business." Marcus just snickered. "Did you get lost on your way to the free coffee stand, Alex?" I ignored them, walking directly to the receptionist. "Alex Miller, for Mr. Sterling." 10 a.m. appointment. The receptionist, a young woman with a polite smile, nodded. "Of course, Mr. Miller. Mr. Sterling is just preparing. He'll be with you all shortly." She gestured vaguely towards the family. The Blackwoods were aghast. "He has an appointment?" Amelia whispered, as if I couldn't hear. "This is outrageous," Richard boomed, finally finding his voice. "He has no place here." "Alex, tell me, what ridiculous scheme are you cooking up?" I turned to them, a strange calm settling over me. The humiliation from the previous night was still fresh, but now it was mixed with a growing sense of defiance. "I am here because I was asked to be here," I said, my voice steady, just like all of you. Before they could escalate, the door to an inner office opened, and a tall, silver-haired man in an impeccable suit emerged. Robert Sterling. He had a kind but firm expression. "Good morning, everyone. Please, come in. We have a lot to discuss." He led us into a large, elegant conference room. A long, polished table dominated the room. On it sat a thick stack of documents and a single, ornate pen. We all took seats. The Blackwoods naturally gravitated to one side, leaving me isolated on the other. Sarah wasn't there, of course. She hadn't known. And I suddenly felt a pang of guilt that I hadn't told her. But the lawyer's words had been clear. Mr. Sterling cleared his throat. "Good morning. My name is Robert Sterling, and I am the executor of the estate of the late Reginald Blackwood. Thank you for coming." He looked around the room, his gaze lingering on me for a fraction of a second longer than the others. "As you know, Mr. Blackwood passed away peacefully last month. He entrusted me with the distribution of his estate according to his final wishes." He picked up the thick stack of papers. The Blackwoods leaned forward, anticipation in their eyes. They probably expected a small formal ceremony before the real division of wealth. They were ready to claim their birthright. "First," Mr. Sterling began, his voice calm and deliberate, "Mr. Blackwood left several personal bequests. To his children, Richard, Eleanor, Amelia, and Stephen, he leaves a sum of $5 million each as a token of his enduring affection." A ripple of murmurs went through the Blackwood side of the table. $5 million. It was a substantial amount, even for them, though I could see a flicker of disappointment in their eyes. They were probably expecting more. They were always expecting more. "To his grandchildren," Mr. Sterling continued, "including Marcus and Sarah, he leaves a sum of $1 million each to assist them in their future endeavors. Another $1 million for Sarah. That was nice. But I still didn't understand why I was here. My heart was thumping. "And now," Mr. Sterling said, his voice taking on a more serious tone, "we come to the primary disposition of Mr. Blackwood's estate. As many of you know, Mr. Blackwood founded and built Blackwood Industries into the titan it is today. His personal stake in the company, which constitutes the majority ownership, was considerable. The Blackwoods sat up straighter. This was it. The main event, the company, the power, the legacy. It was Mr. Blackwood's deepest wish that Blackwood Industries continue to thrive, to grow, and to maintain the values of integrity and innovation upon which it was built." Mr. Sterling paused, looking directly at me. The Blackwoods followed his gaze, their expressions shifting from anticipation to utter bewilderment. "Therefore," Mr. Sterling continued, his voice clear and ringing in the silent room, "Reginald Blackwood, in his last will and testament, hereby bequeaths his entire controlling interest in Blackwood Industries, amounting to 65% of the company's shares, along with full executive control and all associated responsibilities, to Mr. Alexander Miller. The words hung in the air, thick and impossible. My breath hitched. The room erupted. "What?" Richard roared, leaping to his feet, his face turning a dangerous shade of red. "This is preposterous. It's impossible." "A joke," Eleanor shrieked. "My God, Alex, my father's company? To him? This is some kind of sick prank." Marcus looked like he'd been slapped. His mouth was open, agape, his usual smugness replaced by sheer, unadulterated shock. "You can't be serious. This is a fraud. Alex has no claim. He's nobody. He's just Sarah's husband. Chaos, absolute, unmitigated chaos." The Blackwoods were shouting, accusing, demanding answers. They were a pack of wolves, snarling and baring their teeth. But their teeth were aimed at me, and I was the one who had just taken their entire dinner. I just sat there numb. The words played over and over in my head. Entire controlling interest in Blackwood Industries, to Mr. Alexander Miller. It was like a thunderbolt striking me down, but also electrifying me. The word poor that had haunted me for so long vanished, replaced by a seismic shift in the ground beneath my feet. Mr. Sterling remained calm amidst the storm. He held up a hand, patiently waiting for the volume to drop. "Please, everyone, I understand this is shocking, but the will is clear. It has been legally verified, witnessed and notarized. There is no doubt as to its authenticity or Mr. Blackwood's intentions." He looked at me, a hint of something unreadable in his eyes. "Congratulations, Mr. Miller. You are now the majority owner and CEO of Blackwood Industries." I swallowed, trying to find my voice. I was the poor, insignificant husband. The one who would never have money, never command respect. And now, I owned their entire damn company. Company that had fueled their arrogance, their disdain, their very identity. The irony was so immense, so breathtaking that I thought I might actually laugh. Or cry. Or maybe both. The uproar continued. Richard was practically apoplectic, his face a mottled purple. "I don't believe it. My father would never do such a thing. Never. This is a forgery. A conspiracy." He pounded the table, making the ornate pen jump. Eleanor was wailing, real tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face, smudging her mascara. "My inheritance, my birthright, gone to an outsider, a commoner." Marcus, regaining some composure, tried a different tactic. He pointed a trembling finger at me. "Alex, you manipulated him. You must have. My grandfather was old, vulnerable. You took advantage." I finally found my voice, though it was still a bit hoarse. "I didn't manipulate anyone," I said, my gaze sweeping across their furious faces. "I didn't even know Reginald Blackwood had a will, let alone that I was in it." "Silence," Richard roared. "You are a liar, a gold digger. You married Sarah just to get your hands on our family fortune." The accusation stung, but it also solidified my resolve. "I married Sarah because I love her," I stated, my voice steady. "Something your family, it seems, knows nothing about." Mr. Sterling finally intervened, his voice cutting through the noise like a sharp knife. "Enough. This is a legal proceeding and I will not tolerate such outbursts. The will is valid. It was prepared meticulously over a period of years, with Mr. Blackwood's full mental faculties intact. He specifically included provisions to ensure it could not be contested on grounds of duress or diminished capacity. Every single clause, every signature, has been verified multiple times. He picked up a smaller document. Furthermore, Mr. Blackwood anticipated your reactions. He recorded a video message to be played immediately after the reading of the primary disposition. He felt it necessary to explain his decision directly. The room quieted, suddenly uneasy. A video message? From Reginald. This was a new level of unsettling. Mr. Sterling turned on a large flat-screen television on the wall. The screen flickered to life, showing Reginald Blackwood. He looked older, frailer than I remembered. But his eyes were sharp, intelligent, and surprisingly full of a quiet determination. "If you are watching this," Reginald's voice began, surprisingly strong despite his age, "then Robert has just read my final wishes. And I imagine there is considerable consternation, perhaps even outrage, among my family members, particularly regarding the disposition of Blackwood Industries." He paused, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on his lips. "I know what you are thinking, that I have gone mad, that I have betrayed my blood, but I assure you my mind is clearer now than it has ever been. I have watched all of you for many years. I have seen the company I built become a vessel for your personal enrichment, rather than a testament to hard work and innovation." Richard and Eleanor shifted uncomfortably, their faces tightening. Marcus looked like he wanted to punch the screen. "I built Blackwood Industries on principles of merit, integrity, and foresight," Reginald continued, his gaze seeming to pierce through the screen, directly into the souls of his children and grandchildren. "Not on entitlement, greed, or snobbery. I have watched as competence has been overlooked in favor of lineage. I have seen talented individuals stifled and opportunities missed, all to preserve a perceived social order that benefits only a select few." He took a slow breath. "I have also observed Alex Miller, not just as Sarah's husband, but as a man. I first met him many years ago, long before he ever knew my granddaughter. He was just a young man then working a part-time job, but even then his diligence, his sharp mind, and his quiet dedication impressed me. He didn't boast. He didn't seek attention. He simply worked, and he worked well. He had an innate understanding of finance, of markets, of true value, even then, that none of you, with all your expensive degrees and privileged upbringings, ever bothered to truly cultivate." My head snapped up. Years ago, he had met me before. I tried to think back. A part-time job. What was he talking about? Reginald continued, his voice growing stronger. "I watched him from a distance. I saw his quiet struggles, his ambition, his resilience. I saw how he loved my granddaughter, not for her name or her family's wealth, but for who she truly is. And I have seen how you, my family, have treated him, how you have belittled him, mocked his humble origins, dismissed his intelligence, simply because he was not born into your gilded cage." He fixed his gaze directly at the camera, and it felt like he was looking directly at them, at me, at everyone in the room. "Blackwood Industries is not merely a collection of assets. It is a living entity, a legacy. And a legacy deserves a steward who understands its true worth, who will nurture it, and who will lead it with wisdom and integrity, not just with a sense of inherited privilege. None of you possess those qualities to the degree necessary to truly lead my company into the future. Your focus has been on consumption, not creation, on status, not substance." His eyes softened slightly, and he looked almost wistful. "Alex Miller, on the other hand, possesses the potential to be a truly great leader. He has the mind, the character, and the hunger to prove himself precisely because he has been underestimated and scorned. He is not burdened by the weight of inherited entitlement. He will build, not just maintain. So to my family, Reginald concluded, his voice firm and unwavering, I give you your monetary legacies to live comfortably. But the legacy of Blackwood Industries, the beating heart of my life's work, I entrust to Alex Miller. He will protect it, he will grow it, and he will ensure it thrives far beyond your narrow vision. The screen went black. The silence in the room was absolute, a heavy, suffocating blank. The Blackwoods looked utterly decimated, their faces pale, their anger replaced by a stunned, bitter realization. Reginald had seen them. He had judged them, and he had found them wanting. I, on the other hand, felt a strange mix of emotions. Shock, yes. Vindicated, certainly. But also a profound sense of awe. Reginald Blackwood, the quiet old man, had been watching. He had been planning. And he had just delivered the most spectacular, devastating blow imaginable. And he had chosen me. The poor, insignificant Alex Miller. Mr. Sterling finally broke the silence. As you can see, Mr. Blackwood's decision was deliberate and well considered. Mr. Miller is now the majority shareholder and the appointed CEO. We will begin the transition process immediately. Any attempts to obstruct or contest this will be futile and will be met with the full force of the law. He looks pointedly at Richard. I trust we understand each other. Richard could only nod, his jaw working. Eleanor was still weeping silently. Marcus looked like he might actually vomit. I finally spoke, my voice clearer now, stronger. I think we understand. I met Richard's furious gaze, then Eleanor's tear-stained one, and finally Marcus's blank, stunned stare. They had called me poor. They had dismissed me. Now, their entire world had been turned upside down by the very man they had tried to diminish. And I was the unlikely architect of their down. I still didn't fully grasp the magnitude of what had happened. But I knew one thing. My life and theirs would never be the same. My mind was still reeling. The video message from Reginald Blackwood had been the real bombshell, more impactful even than the inheritance itself. He had watched me for years, and he had seen something in me that my own wife's family never bothered to. It was a revelation that both explained everything and made it even more unbelievable. After the stunned silence in the conference room, the Blackwoods quickly exited, muttering threats and dark promises under their breath. Mr. Sterling stopped me before I could leave. Mr. Miller, a moment, please. He led me back into his private office, a much more comfortable space with leather chairs and bookshelves filled with legal tomes. Please sit, he offered, gesturing to a plush armchair. I imagine you have questions. Just one big one, I admitted, sinking into the chair. What did Reginald mean about watching me for years, long before I ever knew his granddaughter? What was that about? Mr. Sterling smiled, a genuine warm smile this time. Reginald was a remarkable man, Mr. Miller. Eccentric, perhaps, but profoundly insightful. He saw things others missed. He had a way of finding talent where no one else thought to look. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his desk. Do you recall working a part-time job at a small bookshop near the old Blackwood Industries headquarters? Roughly 10 years ago? My mind raced back. 10 years ago. I was in college, struggling to pay tuition, juggling classes and a couple of part-time jobs. A bookshop. A small, independent place that sold rare books, old maps, and a few antique trinkets. Yes, I said slowly, the curious scroll. It was on Elm Street. Exactly, Mr. Sterling confirmed. Mr. Blackwood owned that bookshop. It was a personal hobby, a quiet retreat from the corporate world. He spent a great deal of time there, often posing as just an elderly, eccentric customer. He enjoyed observing people, especially those who worked hard and showed genuine curiosity. My jaw dropped. The old man who always came in, browsed for hours, asked strange questions about history and economics, and always had a knowing twinkle in his eye. He bought a lot of the most obscure books, usually paying cash. He was the one who always complimented me on my ability to quickly find obscure titles in their disorganized backroom, or my knack for accurately appraising old coins. He sometimes left unusually generous tips. That was Reginald Blackwood. He would often engage you in conversations, wouldn't he? Mr. Sterling continued, seeing the realization dawn on my face. About your studies, your ambitions, your insights into the financial markets. Even then, he was testing you, Mr. Miller. He was gauging your intellect, your character. He called it informal talent scouting. He believed true potential often emerged outside the confines of elite institutions or privileged backgrounds. He bought me coffee a few times, I mumbled, still trying to process it. He always asked about my finance classes, what I thought about the latest market news. I just thought he was a very curious old man. He was, Mr. Sterling agreed. But he was also seeing a future leader. He told me he was consistently impressed by your analytical mind, your quiet diligence, and your profound sense of integrity. He saw you work your way through college, taking on any honest job to pay your way, while his own family, he felt, took everything for granted. Paused, then added, he also told me you once intervened when a young, struggling artist tried to pawn off a forged painting at the shop. You identified the forgery, but instead of shaming the artist, you quietly offered him some constructive criticism. Even suggested ways he could improve his technique and offered to buy some of his legitimate, but less valuable, sketches yourself just to help him out. You didn't make a scene. You just handled it with quiet dignity and genuine concern for another human being. Reginald witnessed that, he said. It cemented his conviction about your character. I vaguely remembered that incident. It was years ago. I had completely forgotten about it. The artist had been desperate, and I felt for him. I hadn't wanted to embarrass him. It was just instinct. He followed your career, Mr. Miller, Mr. Sterling said. Discreetly, of course. He saw you graduate, enter the financial world, rise through the ranks at your firm. He knew you were good, very good. He also knew his own children and grandchildren. He saw their increasing entitlement, their focus on personal luxury over corporate responsibility, their willingness to sacrifice long-term vision for short-term gains. He feared for the company he had built. He knew that if he left it to them, they would slowly, perhaps unintentionally, run it into the ground or simply sell it off piecemeal for quick profit. They had lost sight of the core value. He always said the company was like his child. Mr. Sterling continued, and he simply couldn't bear to see his child neglected or exploited. He began planning this years ago, preparing the will, laying the groundwork, ensuring every loophole was closed. He made sure that his family received enough to live comfortably, to remove any immediate financial hardship, but not enough to control the company they so clearly valued only for its monetary output, not its purpose. My head was spinning. All those years, the casual chats, the seemingly random advice, it had all been part of a grand design. Reginald Blackwood, the quiet, observant old man, had been orchestrating a masterpiece of a succession plan, right under his family's noses. And I was the unwitting chosen one. He wanted you to be prepared. Mr. Sterling added, which is why he included a provision for an executive team, already loyal to him, to assist you in the transition. They are waiting for your call, ready to help you navigate the initial complexities. He didn't expect you to walk in knowing everything, but he knew you had the capacity to learn and lead. I finally understood. It wasn't just some random act of defiance. It was a carefully considered long-term strategy by a visionary who saw his legacy crumbling and found an unlikely savior. It wasn't about revenge on his family, not directly, but about saving his life's work, and I was the tool for that salvation. The weight of it settled on me. Blackwood Industries, a massive multi-billion-dollar company. Now mine, the boy they called poor, the man they said had no ambition, no means, no understanding. I was now at the helm of their entire empire. A strange mix of terror and exhilaration surged through me. This was bigger than just proving them wrong. This was a monumental responsibility, but also a monumental opportunity. An opportunity to show, not just the Blackwoods but myself, that I was more than just the poor guy. I was a leader, I was a builder, and I was about to embark on the most challenging and perhaps most rewarding journey of my life. The game had changed, and I was ready to play. Walking back into our apartment felt strange. The air seemed different, thicker, charged with unspoken possibility. I had left that morning feeling small, humiliated. Now I returned as the owner of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. The sheer weight of it was almost unbearable. But the first person I had to tell was Sarah. She was in the living room, curled up on the sofa, looking miserable. Her eyes were puffy from crying. She must have spent the morning worrying about me after last night's awful dinner. Seeing her like that made my heart ache. Despite her family's awful behavior, Sarah was genuinely kind, often caught in the middle. "Hey," I said, my voice softer than I intended. She looked up, her face etched with concern. "Alex, are you okay? I'm so sorry about last night. I walked over and sat beside her, taking her hand. It felt tiny in mine. "Sarah, something happened this morning. Something big." She frowned, searching my face. "What is it? Did you get fired? Did they do something else?" Her mind immediately went to the worst-case scenario, to me being further downtrodden. It hit me then how much of our relationship had been defined by her family's disdain for me. "No," I said, taking a deep breath. "It's about your grandfather's will." Her eyes widened. "Grandpa Reginald? What about it? Did he leave you something small?" "A token of appreciation for being married to me." She tried to smile, but it was weak. "He left me Blackwood Industries," I said, the words feeling huge and impossible as they left my lips. "The entire controlling interest, 65% of the company. I am the new CEO." Sarah stared at me. Her mouth opened, then closed. Her expression cycled through disbelief, confusion, and then a slow dawning comprehension. "What?" she finally whispered, her voice barely audible. That's not possible. My father, Marcus, they would never allow it." "They don't have a choice," I explained, recounting the scene at the lawyer's office, the family's outrage, and especially Reginald's video message. I watched her face as I described her grandfather's words, the quiet way he had been observing me, his disappointment in his own children. As I finished, a tear traced a path down her cheek, but it wasn't a tear of sadness. It was a tear of complex emotion. He really thought that of them," she whispered. "That they were just about greed and status?" "He did," I confirmed. and he thought I was the one who could save his legacy. She stood up slowly, walked to the window and stared out. Her shoulders were shaking. My family, they're going to lose their minds. They already have, haven't they? They're furious, I admitted. They accused me of fraud, manipulation. Richard was screaming. Eleanor was crying. Marcus looked like he'd seen a ghost. She turned back to me, her eyes red-rimmed but clear. And you? How do you feel? Overwhelmed, I confessed. Terrified. But also a strange kind of peace. And a fierce determination. He put his trust in me, Sarah. I can't let him down. I can't let us down. She came back and sat beside me again, leaning her head on my shoulder. This changes everything, Alex. I know, I said, wrapping my arm around her. It changes everything. For us, for them, for the company. The very next day, the storm broke. Richard, Eleanor, and Marcus called Sarah incessantly, demanding to speak to me, demanding explanations, demanding that I return what was rightfully theirs. Sarah tried to mediate, but it was useless. Their anger was absolute. Sarah, you have to talk sense into him. Eleanor shrieked over the phone, her voice tinny and shrill enough for me to hear it from across the room. Can't just take the company. It's ours. Our families. Tell him to sign it back over. Tell him it's a mistake. Then Marcus chimed in. Sarah, are you even on our side? Or are you even on our side? Or are you just letting this opportunist destroy our family name? You married into the Blackwoods, not out of them. It was clear they were trying to drive a wedge between us. They saw me as the enemy, and Sarah, by association, was caught in the crossfire. Sarah hung up, looking distraught. They're impossible, Alex. They truly believe you manipulated Grandpa. They think you are destroying the family. I am not destroying it, Sarah, I said firmly. They were already doing that themselves. Your grandfather just decided to stop them. Over the next few days, the calls continued. Threats started to filter in. Not direct, but implied. Marcus called to say that some people might not take kindly to outsiders meddling in Blackwood affairs, whatever that meant. Richard's lawyers sent a formal letter contesting the will, though Mr. Sterling assured me it was a weak case and would go nowhere. They were just flailing. Through it all, Sarah remained by my side, though I could see the strain on her. She loved her family, despite their flaws, and seeing them hurt and angry, even if it was their own doing, was difficult for her. One evening, after another particularly nasty phone call with her mother, Sarah looked at me, her eyes filled with a raw emotion I couldn't quite place. Alex, she began, her voice trembling. They said if you don't give it back, they'll disown me. They'll cut me off completely. They said I'd have to choose. My heart sank. This was it, the ultimate pressure. What did you say? I asked. My breath caught in my throat. She met my gaze, her chin trembling slightly. I told them I wasn't choosing. I told them this was my home, and you were my husband, and I wasn't going anywhere. I told them they were wrong to treat you this way, and that Grandpa had his reasons. She took a shaky breath. They hung up on me. A wave of relief and fierce love washed over me. She had chosen me. Over their wealth, over their approval, over her very family. Thank you, I whispered, pulling her into a tight hug. Thank you, Sarah. She hugged me back, burying her face in my shoulder. It hurts, Alex. It really hurts. But I know this is important. For you, for Grandpa, for what's right. Her loyalty, in the face of such immense pressure from her own blood, solidified my determination. This wasn't just about me proving myself. It was about standing up for what was right, for the legacy Reginald Blackwood had entrusted me with. and for the woman who believed in me when her entire family had tried to tear me down. The divide between us and the Blackwoods was now deeper than ever, a chasm carved out by greed and entitlement, and I was ready to cross it. The first day at Blackwood Industries as CEO felt like stepping into an alternate reality. The building itself was imposing, a monolithic structure of glass and steel in the heart of the city's financial district. I used to just walk past it on my way to my old job, barely giving it a second glance. Now, I was walking into it as its new owner. Mr. Sterling had arranged for a discreet arrival. No fanfare, no press. Just me, him, and a security detail I didn't even know I had. He led me through the gleaming lobby, past the security desk, where a nervous guard eyed me with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Word had clearly spread. "Your office is on the top floor," Mr. Sterling informed me, his voice calm amidst the whirlwind in my head. "The former CEO's office, Mr. Richard Blackwood, will no longer be occupying it." A small, grim satisfaction settled in my chest. Richard, who had called me poor, whose office I was now inheriting. The executive floor was hushed. Secretaries and assistants scurried by, trying to look busy but failing to hide their glances. They all knew that the outsider was here. My new office was vast, with panoramic views of the city skyline. It was decorated in muted, powerful tones, an intimidating space. A large, polished desk sat in the center, empty of personal effects. Richard's things had clearly been removed. "The executive team Reginald put in place will be here shortly to brief you," Mr. Sterling said. "They are seasoned professionals loyal to the company's best interests, and specifically chosen by Mr. Blackwood to support your transition. They have already been informed of the will's provisions and your appointment." As if on cue, the door opened and 3 people entered. First, a stern-looking woman with sharp, intelligent eyes, probably in her late 50s. "Mr. Miller," she said, extending a hand. "I am Eleanor Vance, Chief Operating Officer. A pleasure to finally meet you." Eleanor Vance. I remembered Reginald's video. He had mentioned an executive team chosen for their loyalty. She must be one of them. "Miss Vance," I replied, shaking her hand firmly. "The pleasure is mine." Next was a younger man, perhaps my age, with a friendly, open face. Mark Jenkins, Chief Financial Officer. He introduced himself, his handshake surprisingly warm. Finally, a quiet, almost shy woman in her 40s. And I and Dr. Lena Petrova, Head of Research and Development. Her handshake was firm, her eyes analytical. These were Reginald's people, the ones he trusted. They didn't seem surprised to see me, only curious. No disdain, no judgment. It was a stark contrast to the Blackwood family. "I imagine this is a lot to take in," Eleanor Vance said, her voice pragmatic. "But we're here to help you get up to speed." Mr. Blackwood had been preparing us for this for a while, though we didn't know the specifics of who our new leader would be until recent. Told us his intention was to ensure the company's future, even if it meant unconventional choices, Mark added. He instilled in us the importance of the company's mission over any family ties. Lena simply nodded, her gaze intense. He saw what was happening. He wanted to course correct. Over the next few hours, they began to brief me. And what they revealed was both illuminating and deeply concerning. Blackwood Industries was a powerful company, but it was stagnant. Under Richard's leadership as CEO and Marcus's as head of various divisions, the company had become complacent. Innovation had slowed. Promising projects were shelved because they didn't offer immediate massive returns. Key talent was being lost due to a rigid hierarchical structure that prioritized family members. regardless of their competence. Marcus, for example, Eleanor Vance explained, referring to my brother-in-law, was technically in charge of our entire tech division. But his true passion was golf and high-end cars. He delegated everything, rarely understood the technical reports, and often stifled new ideas if they seemed too complex or risky. Mark chimed in. Financially, the company is still strong thanks to Reginald's initial foundation. But expenses, especially executive salaries and lavish perks, have ballooned. Profits have been consistent, but growth has stalled. We're falling behind competitors in critical sectors. Lena, the R&D head, looked particularly frustrated. Many of our brightest scientists and engineers have left because their ideas weren't being heard. We have incredible potential here, Mr. Miller, but it's been locked away, gathering dust. It was worse than I thought. Reginald hadn't just removed his family to be punitive. He had done it to save his company from slow strangulation. They were like parasites, living off the host without contributing to its health. My first order of business, I stated, the words coming naturally, surprisingly, is a full audit, every department, every budget, every project. I want to see the true state of affairs. Eleanor Vance nodded approvingly. We've already prepared preliminary reports, Mr. Miller. We anticipated you would want to dive deep. They laid out files, charts, and spreadsheets. I spent the rest of the day poring over them, asking questions, my financial analysis background kicking in. The numbers told a damning story. The Blackwoods weren't just incompetent. Some of their decisions bordered on negligent, others on outright self-serving. Funds were being siphoned off for dubious consultancy fees, paid to shell company. Yauks were greenlit based on personal connections, not merit. As the day drew to a close, a formal email landed in my inbox. It was from Richard Blackwood. Thinly veiled threat, disguised as a polite request for a meeting to discuss the future of our family's legacy. He clearly wanted to negotiate to regain some control. I looked out at the city lights, my new empire stretching before me. They thought I was poor. They thought I was a nobody. They thought I was an easily manipulated amateur. They were about to find out just how wrong they were. The cleanup was going to be massive. But I was ready, and I was going to enjoy every single step of it. The audit was a deep dive, a forensic examination of every dark corner of Blackwood Industries. With Eleanor Vance, Mark Jenkins, and Lena Petrova by my side, we began to peel back the layers of mismanagement and self-enrichment. The deeper we dug, the more appalled I became. It wasn't just complacency, it was outright corruption and gross negligence. Richard, Eleanor, Marcus, Amelia, Stephen, every single one of them who held an executive position had been using the company as their personal piggy bank. There were travel expenses that amounted to luxury vacations for their extended families, disguised as business development trips. Consultancy fees were paid to companies owned by their friends, often for no discernible work. Nepotism was rampant. Key positions vital for the company's competitiveness were filled by unqualified family members or their cronies. "Look at this," Mark said one morning, pointing to a ledger entry. Marcus approved a patent purchase for a new energy storage technology for $500 million last year. But our R&D team had already developed a superior, more cost-effective version internally, for a fraction of that cost. Marcus just ignored Lena's team, claiming their project was unproven. Lena Petrova, usually so composed, looked furious. That new energy storage technology was owned by one of Marcus's golf buddies, a shell company. With no real R&D, it was inferior, expensive, and a complete waste of company resources. My team's project, the Genesis prototype, was shelved indefinitely. Despite showing incredible promise, it could have revolutionized our energy division. This wasn't just incompetence. This was active sabotage of the company's future for personal gain. My blood began to boil. And this, Eleanor Vance said, pulling up a digital file. The Blackwood Family Foundation. It's supposed to be a charitable arm of the company, but 80% of its funds went to renovations on Eleanor Blackwood's private estates, disguised as heritage preservation projects. They weren't just calling me poor, they were making the company poorer, systematically draining its resources and stifling its innovation to line their own pockets. Reginald had seen this. This was why he had acted. My first few weeks were a blur of meetings, data analysis, and difficult decisions. The immediate priorities were clear: stop the bleeding, restore competence, and rebuild morale. We need to cut the dead weight, I told Eleanor Vance. Starting with every family member in an executive position. She nodded grimly. It will be messy. They will fight. Let them, I said, my voice hardening. They fought for years to keep me out, to keep me poor. Now it's my turn to fight for this company. The next day, I called a company-wide meeting. It was a massive auditorium, filled with thousands of employees. The tension was palpable. Whispers rippled through the crowd. I stood on the stage, the Blackwood Industries logo behind me, and looked out at the faces, hopeful, skeptical, afraid. Good morning, I began, my voice clear and projecting confidence I barely felt. My name is Alex Miller, and as many of you know, I am the new CEO of Blackwood Industries. I know this has been a tumultuous period for all of you. Here has been a lot of uncertainty. I paused, letting the words sink in. Let me be clear. Reginald Blackwood entrusted me with this company because he believed in its potential, and he believed in the people who truly make this company great. You, the employees. He saw, as I now see, that this potential has been stifled, that innovation has been ignored, that integrity has been compromised. A murmur went through the crowd. Richard, Eleanor, and Marcus, still technically employees for now, sat in the front row. Their faces grim. They looked like they wanted to storm the stage. Effective immediately, I continued. My voice firm, there will be significant changes. First, to ensure the financial health and ethical operation of this company, we are initiating a zero-tolerance policy for corruption and mismanagement. Any practices that put personal gain before company success will be investigated and addressed without hesitation. I saw Marcus flinch. Second, I announced, to foster a culture of meritocracy and innovation. All executive positions currently held by individuals not actively contributing to the company's growth and vision will be reviewed. Some positions will be eliminated. Others will be filled by individuals who have demonstrated true leadership, competence, and dedication, regardless of their last name. Richard started to rise, but Eleanor Vance, who was standing subtly near him, put a hand on his arm, a warning in her eyes. And finally, I said, my gaze sweeping across the faces of the employees, we will be revitalizing our R&D division. The Genesis project, which was unfairly sidelined, will be reinstated and fully funded. Dr. Petrova will be given the resources she needs to bring her vision to fruition. We will invest in our talent, in our future, and in the ideas that will truly drive Blackwood Industries forward. A ripple of applause, tentative at first, then growing louder, swept through the auditorium. It wasn't universal, but it was there. Hope. I saw it in their eyes. Later that day, the formal termination letters were delivered. Richard, Eleanor, Marcus, Amelia, Stephen, all removed from their executive positions. Their company cards deactivated, their access revoked. The Blackwoods were no longer in charge. Their reign of entitlement was over. The screaming phone calls from Eleanor started immediately after. "You demon! You are destroying us. You are cutting us off. We'll sue you. We'll ruin you." I let her scream, then calmly responded. "You have your inheritance, Eleanor. $5 million each. That's more than enough to live on comfortably, without bleeding this company dry. Your executive roles were terminated due to gross mismanagement and conflict of interest. It's all in the audit report. And no, you won't ruin me. You already tried that." I hung up. The satisfaction was immense. This wasn't about revenge, not entirely. It was about cleaning house. It was about restoring integrity. It was about honoring Reginald Blackwood's legacy. And it was about proving, once and for all, that being poor had nothing to do with capability, worth, or true ambition. The rot was being exposed, and I was just getting started. The immediate aftermath of the firings was pure pandemonium for the Blackwood family. The initial shock wore off, replaced by a furious multi-pronged attack against me. They tried everything. Legal threats, public smear campaigns, even trying to turn Sarah against me again. Richard's lawyers launched a full-scale assault, filing multiple lawsuits challenging every aspect of the will, the transition, and my authority as CEO. Mr. Sterling, thankfully, was more than prepared. He met every suit with a countersuit, armed with Reginald's meticulously crafted legal protections and the increasingly damning audit reports. "They're grasping at straws, Mr. Miller," he assured me over the phone one evening. "Their cases are baseless. We're winning every motion. The judge is already tired of their antics." Then came the media. The Blackwoods, experts at manipulating public perception, leaked stories about the shocking betrayal and unethical usurpation of their family legacy by an opportunistic outsider. Tabloids ran headlines like "Poor Man Steals Billionaire Empire" and "Family Feud Rips Apart Blackwood Fortune." I was advised by our new PR team to keep a low profile, but I refused. "Let them talk," I told. "We'll respond with action, not just words. And when we do speak, it will be the truth." The internal resistance at Blackwood Industries, however, was a more delicate matter. While the majority of employees were cautiously optimistic, some were still loyal to the old guard, or simply afraid of change. Whispers of outsider and disruptor circulate. One afternoon, I called a meeting of the remaining senior executives and department heads. Some were Reginald's chosen people like Eleanor, Mark, and Lena. Others were longtime employees who had endured the Blackwood family's reign. "I know this is a difficult transition for many of you," I began, looking around the polished conference room. "Tea here is a lot of uncertainty. But I want to assure you all that my priority is the health and future of Blackwood Industries and the well-being of its dedicated employees." Just then, the door burst open. Richard Blackwood stormed in, followed by Eleanor and Marcus. They ignored the security guard who tried to stop them. Their faces were contorted with fury. They weren't just angry, they were desperate. "Alex, you bastard!" Richard roared, pointing a trembling finger at me. How dare you disgrace our family name in the press? You are destroying everything." Eleanor, her voice shrill, added, "You fired us, the rightful owners. We built this company." "No," I said calmly, standing up. "Reginald Blackwood built this company, and he put me in charge to save it from you." Marcus, ever the slick one, tried to appeal to the other executives in the room. "Don't listen to him. He's a fraud. He knows nothing about this business. He's just a common financial analyst who manipulated an old man. You are wrong, Marcus, I countered, my voice firm. I know this business far better than you ever did. I know about the inflated contracts, the ghost employees, the shelved innovations, the talent you drove away. I have the audit reports to prove it. And so does the court. Richard, enraged, lunged forward. You think you can just walk in here and take what's ours? You think you can spit on our legacy? Security finally moved in, but I held up a hand. Let them speak. Let them show everyone here what Reginald Blackwood saw. We will ruin you. Eleanor shrieked. We'll destroy your reputation. You'll never work again. My reputation? I asked, a bitter laugh escaping me. You've been trying to ruin my reputation for years. You called me poor. You called me a commoner. You dismissed my intelligence, my ambition, my very worth. You treated me like dirt because I wasn't born with your silver spoon. I walked slowly around the table, meeting each of their furious gazes. You thought wealth and status made you superior. You thought your name guaranteed you power, but Reginald Blackwood saw through all of that. He saw that you were parasites, feeding off his hard work, draining the lifeblood from his company for your own selfish desires. I am not destroying your legacy, I said, stopping in front of Marcus, who recoiled slightly. I am saving it. I am cutting out the rot. I am restoring the principles of meritocracy and integrity that Reginald built this company on. Principles that you, Marcus, consistently ignored in favor of your golf buddies' shell companies. Marcus's face went white. I turned to Richard. And you, Richard, you lectured me about ambition, about real business. You always spoke of legacy, but you were too busy squandering it, filling your pockets with company money, and promoting cronies over competence. Richard looked like he was about to explode. This is slander. You have no proof. Oh, I have proof, I corrected, my voice deadly quiet. Your father did too. That's why I am here, and you are not. I then looked at Eleanor. And as for you, Eleanor, who cried about your birthright, your inheritance, you have $5 million. That's more than most people earn in a lifetime. Yet you chose to siphon off company funds for your private mansion renovations. That's not a birthright, that's theft. The Blackwoods were speechless, their rage momentarily eclipsed by the raw truth I was throwing at them. The other executives in the room looked on, some with shock, others with dawning understanding and grim satisfaction. They had seen these things too. They just hadn't been able to stop them. You are no longer welcome here, I stated, my voice echoing in the sudden silence. Your access is revoked. Your lawyers can deal with Mr. Sterling. Security, escort them out, and ensure they never step foot on Blackwood Industries property again. The security guards moved in. Richard, Eleanor, and Marcus resisted at first, but they were quickly, firmly escorted from the room, their protests fading down the hall. I turned back to the remaining executives, taking a deep breath. Now, I said, a new energy in my voice. Let's get back to work. We have a company to rebuild, a legacy to honor, and a future to secure. A ripple of applause, stronger this time, broke out in the room. It wasn't just fear or politeness. It was respect. It was a turning point. Public smear campaign, the legal battles, the internal resistance, all of it would continue. But for the first time, I felt like I truly owned Blackwood Industries, not just on paper, but in the hearts and minds of the people who worked there. Confrontation had solidified my position and shattered the illusion of the Blackwood family's power for good. The weeks and months that followed the confrontation were a relentless grind, but also incredibly fulfilling. The legal battles continued, but the Blackwoods' claims grew weaker and weaker, as Mr. Sterling systematically dismantled their arguments with solid evidence from the order. Eventually, facing mounting legal fees and repeated defeats, they were forced to drop their lawsuits. The public smear campaign also fizzled out. The media, seeing no new drama, and increasingly swayed by positive stories about Blackwood Industries' newfound transparency and innovation, moved on. Under my leadership, with the unwavering support of Eleanor Vance, Mark Jenkins, and Lena Petrova, Blackwood Industries began to transform. We streamlined operations, cutting unnecessary expenses, and dismantling the old, rigid hierarchy. We invested heavily in R&D, and Lena's Genesis project, a groundbreaking sustainable energy solution, moved rapidly towards commercialization. Employee morale soared. People felt heard, valued, and empowered to contribute. We attracted new talent, eager to be part of a company that was truly forward-looking. The company's performance reflected the change. Profits, while initially dipping due to restructuring costs, soon began to climb steadily, fueled by renewed innovation and efficiency. Our market share grew. Blackwood Industries wasn't just surviving, it was thriving, more so than it had in decades. As the company flourished, the Blackwood family's fortunes waned. Without their executive salaries, their perks, and their ability to siphon funds, their lavish lifestyles became unsustainable. The $5 million inheritances, while substantial, quickly diminished under the weight of their existing debts. Their refusal to curb their spending habits and the enormous legal fees from their failed lawsuits. They had always lived beyond their means, assuming the company would always be there to bail them out. Now it wasn't. One afternoon I was in my office, reviewing the latest quarterly reports, all green, all positive, when my assistant buzzed through. "Mr. Miller, your mother-in-law Eleanor Blackwood is here. She insists on seeing you. She says it's urgent." I hesitated. I hadn't seen any of them in person since the boardroom confrontation. "Send her in." Eleanor walked in, but she wasn't the same woman. Her hair, once shellacked and perfect, was slightly disheveled. Her designer suit looked dated. Her eyes, once full of haughty disdain, were now etched with worry and, surprisingly, a hint of desperation. She looked smaller. "Alex," she began, her voice devoid of its usual shrillness. "I need to talk to you, please." I gestured to the chair opposite my desk. "What can I do for you, Eleanor?" She sat, nervously smoothing her skirt. "We're in trouble, Alex. Real trouble. The money, it's almost gone. Richard is refusing to sell the country estate. Marcus is deep in gambling debt, and Bethany left him. We don't know what to do." I just looked at her. The woman who had called me poor, who had mocked my very existence, was now sitting in my office, begging for help. The irony was almost unbearable. "I have my $5 million, Alex," she continued, her voice trembling. "But it's not enough to cover everything. Richard is threatening to sell my house. He says I need to contribute more. He says it's all my fault for not convincing you to give the company back." She was blaming me. Even now. "Eleanor," I said, my voice calm but firm, "Reginald Blackwood left you a very generous sum. More than enough to live a comfortable life, if managed properly. That you chose to squander it on maintaining a lifestyle you couldn't afford is not my responsibility." "But it's your company now," she cried, a flash of her old self returning. "You owe us. We're family." "You cut me out of the family, Eleanor," I reminded her, my gaze unwavering. "You called me poor, you dismissed me. You tried to ruin me and this company. You pushed Sarah to choose between me and you, and she chose me." Her face fell. She knew it was true. "Please, Alex. Just a small position for Marcus, something to get him back on his feet. He's suffering. Richard too. They can't find work." This was the choice. Do I offer them a lifeline, or let them drown in the consequences of their own arrogance and mismanagement? The easy answer was to let them face the music. They had tormented me for years. They deserved it. But then I thought of Sarah. She had stood by me. And despite everything, Eleanor and Richard were still her parents. Marcus, her brother. They might be toxic, but they were her blood. And while they had driven a wedge between themselves and Sarah, she hadn't completely disowned them. The pain she felt from the divide was still palpable. "No," I said, shaking my head. "No positions here, not for them. This company is a meritocracy, and their track record here is clear." Eleanor's face crumpled. "So that's it. You'll just watch us lose everything." "You have your inheritance," I repeated. "Sell the country estate, sell the other properties. Downsize your lifestyle. That's what responsible people do when their circumstances change." I leaned forward. "This is a reckoning, Eleanor, for all of you. You always relied on the company to sustain your extravagance. Now you have to stand on your own 2 feet, like most people do. You have a chance to rebuild your lives if you choose to." I softened my tone slightly. "However, for Sarah's sake, and only for Sarah's sake, if you truly fall into dire straits, and you can prove you've exhausted all your own resources and made genuine efforts to become self-sufficient, I will consider providing a modest, temporary assistance. Not as charity, but as a path to independence, and it would come with strict conditions." Eleanor stared at me, a flicker of something in her eyes I hadn't seen before. Humility, or perhaps just desperation. "Conditions." "Yes," I said. "No more grandstanding, no more lies, no more attempts to undermine the company or me. A genuine acknowledgement of your past mistakes, and you'd have to prove you are changing your ways." She looked away, ashamed. I understand." She stood up, looking smaller than ever. "Thank you, Alex. I don't know what to say. Just take care of yourselves," I replied. "And think about what truly matters." After she left, I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. It wasn't full forgiveness, not by a long shot. But it wasn't pure vengeance either. It was a conditional offer, a path to redemption if they chose to take it. It was for Sarah, for the quiet, kind woman who had stood by me when her entire family had abandoned her. The reckoning was here, and I was navigating it with a strange mix of justice and grace. My marriage, against all odds, had survived and even thrived. And I knew that no amount of money could buy the peace of mind that came with that. Years passed. Blackwood Industries, under my leadership, became a powerhouse. The Genesis Energy project revolutionized the sustainable energy sector, cementing our place as innovators. We expanded into new markets, acquired promising startups, and continued to prioritize meritocracy and employee welfare. Company was no longer just a name. It was a symbol of what dedication, integrity, and true leadership could achieve. My rags to riches story became a subject of fascination in the business world, though I largely avoided the spotlight. I preferred to let the company's success speak for itself. The poor guy had not only inherited the company, but he had also made it soar to unprecedented heights, something the original Blackwoods never managed in their entitled reign. Sarah and I were happier than ever. Our marriage, forged in the crucible of her family's scorn and the shocking inheritance, had emerged stronger. She flourished, stepping into her own, no longer burdened by the expectations of her family name. She started her own non-profit, dedicated to supporting underprivileged students pursue higher education. A quiet nod to my own struggles in college. She found her purpose, separate from the Blackwood legacy, but informed by the lessons we had learned. As for the Blackwood family, the reckoning had been harsh. Richard and Marcus had squandered their inheritances and refused to adjust their lifestyles. They eventually lost everything. Richard was forced to sell the country estate, a final humiliation. He lived in a modest apartment now, a bitter, broken man. Marcus drifted from one failed venture to another, his once sharp suits replaced by ill-fitting clothes, his arrogance replaced by a hollow despair. They never reached out for the modest temporary assistance I had offered. Their pride, even in their ruin, remained too strong. Or perhaps they simply couldn't bring themselves to acknowledge their mistakes. Eleanor, however, was different. After her visit to my office, she and Richard had an epic falling out. She managed to hold on to a portion of her $5 million, downsized significantly, and to my surprise, started volunteering at a local charity. She even started attending some of Sarah's non-profit events, quietly, anonymously. She never apologized directly for her past behavior, but her actions, her humility, spoke volumes. She began rebuilding her life, slowly, painfully, but genuinely. Sarah and I maintained a distant but cordial relationship with her, a fragile bridge mended by time and shared grief over Reginald. I often thought about Reginald Blackwood, his quiet wisdom, his foresight, his ultimate trust in an outsider to protect his life's work. He had seen beyond the superficial, beyond the family name, and into the true character of people. His legacy wasn't just the company, it was the profound lesson he had taught everyone, especially his own family, that true worth isn't inherited, it's earned. One quiet evening, Sarah and I sat on our balcony, overlooking the shimmering skyline of the city. The Blackwood Industries headquarters, a beacon of light against the night sky, stood tall and proud. "Remember when they called you poor?" Sarah mused, leaning her head on my shoulder. I smiled, a genuine, content smile. "I do, every single word." "They had no idea, did they?" she whispered. "No," I replied, squeezing her hand. "They had no idea, and honestly, neither did I." It wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. It was about proving them wrong, not just to them, but to myself. It was about showing that empathy, hard work, and integrity could build something far greater and more enduring than inherited wealth and arrogant entitlement. I was no longer the poor man. I was the leader, the builder, the man who had taken a legacy on the brink and brought it back to life. And I had done it all, not just for myself, but for the quiet old man who had seen something in me when no one else had. And for the woman who had stood by me when everyone else wanted me to fail. This wasn't just an ending, it was a new beginning, filled with purpose, success, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that true wealth lay not in what you had, but in who you were.